He reckons the agency, rather than his ex-fling, should reimburse him for its appalling checks and balances.
This proves I'm not the dad, so where's my money?
You can read the full statement from the Department of Human Services on our website. 10 days ago, Scott Morrison became Australia's 5th PM in 5 years after bitter Liberal infighting claimed Malcolm Turnbull. Today, we went to his home to talk about how he got the top job and how he plans to keep it. We also met the charming new First Lady, Jenny, from the Shire. Prime Minister, thanks for your time.
Thanks, Tracy.
Nice of you to let us in and tear your house to pieces.
I was. That's what my kids do all the time.
What is it going to take to convince Australians that you have repaired the damage from when the party blew itself up a week or so ago?
Well, the Parliament resembled a Muppet show a week or so ago. And, the curtain comes down on that, and the curtain has now lifted. I'm leading the government, I'm leading the party. It's a new generation of Liberal leadership.
I understand you saying that, but can you understand that Australians are going to need more than you saying that to convince them? I mean, my sense is that Australians are contemptuous of politics and politicians right now. And, they watched you all squabble about, old animosities and old ideologies, and that means nothing to them in their lives.
I agree. I mean, I said a while back, it's not about trying to convince people that they are on our side and get them to be on our side. It's about us demonstrating to them that we're on their side. That's what matters. I've been in the Parliament now for just over a decade, and it has been probably the most tumultuous period on both sides of politics since, the dismissal when I was a kid. And I think Australians have had a gutful of that. You know what? I've had a gutful of that.
You have tried to build bridges. You've found a job for Tony Abbott despite his agitating over the past few years. You've kept Peter Dutton in his job despite the fact that he tried to roll a sitting Prime Minister. And yet, the leaking and the briefing seems to continue. And we hear today, for example, that you were behind that whole leadership spill, that you used Peter Dutton as a stalking horse.
Yeah, well, and if that's true, Elvis is cutting hair in Lithgow too.
I understand what you're saying, but your detractors are still out there, and they're out there within the party.
Oh, they'll move on. Look,
will they? They haven't moved on for 3 years. Tony Abbott hasn't moved on for 3 years.
Yeah, no, but that's the thing. I mean, this is what the next generation leadership thing is all about. Our generation of Liberals has lived with that fighting in the past, and we've had a gutful of it, and that's why the curtain has come down on that. And I'm starting afresh. If they're feeling wounded, if they're feeling damaged, or they're feeling hurt, you know what? Get over it, because we've got a country to run, and that's what I've demanded of them.
How will your government be different to Malcolm Turnbull's if he had stayed?
Well, I think, look, I'm a different person, and every Prime Minister brings their own personality, they bring their own emphasis to what is done. Now, I'm a boy from the suburbs here in Sydney. I'm
not a billionaire.
No, I'm a father, bringing up 2 kids here in suburban Sydney. I've got a mortgage which is about the same size as most other Australians on average. I mean, we've run a good program. More than 1 million people have got jobs since we became elected in 2013. 95,500, and this is my most exciting statistic. In the last financial year, young people got a job. That is my biggest passion. Australians in jobs. That means they have choices and decisions about their own lives.
But that was happening before Malcolm Turnbull.
And it's got to keep happening. And that's the point. That's the point. We need to keep our economy strong. We need to keep Australians safe. And we need to keep Australians together.
But I guess what I'm asking you is, how are you going to be different to Malcolm Turnbull? Because if you're not different to Malcolm Turnbull, why did it all happen?
Well, I think that's a fair question, but I think the events that led us to the point of me becoming Prime Minister were strange, they were bewildering, and they were disappointing. I agree with all of that. But the charge that is before me now is to take control and lead the country and to lead my party. Now, that's what I'll be doing, showing that strength of leadership.
You've promised to get energy prices down. How are you going to do that before the next election? The
official figures showed that electricity prices had actually started falling just marginally 1.3%. You've got to turn the corner before you start seeing things fall. Now, what we're doing is threefold.
So you're saying you were already on track?
Well, I'm saying it was already turning the corner because of many of the things that we had already done, and we need to add to those. Safety net, big stick, and more investment in fair dinkum power, that'll get prices down.
Where do you stand on climate change?
I give the climate the benefit of the doubt. My kids, want to live in a beautiful environment and a beautiful climate here in Australia. But I tell you what I'm not going to do. I'm not going to destroy my kids' future by putting in reckless targets like a 50% renewable energy target. All that will do is put prices through the roof. Or a 45% emissions reduction target. I think that's reckless.
But if you believe in human-induced climate change, surely you believe in emissions reduction.
And those policies continue.
Let's talk about the drought, because farmers are paying crippling freight costs right now to bring feed across the country, because there's certainly very little on the east coast. Is it time, for example, for the army to start driving feed?
The drought itself, there is responses at all levels. I mean, the state governments are providing the subsidies for moving the grain around. And to the extent there's additional support required there is good, but you know what? I don't want to put one truck driver out of work. I don't want to put someone out of a job whose job it is to actually get grain, whether it's from Western Australia or up from Tasmania or Victoria or even New Zealand for that matter. You know, we've got to use the businesses who are out there and part of our rural and regional economies. When it comes to the families themselves, one of the things that's really annoying me and is annoying them is this farm household assistance application form. I spoke to a family the other day. It took them 7 hours with a financial counsellor.
Yep.
We've got to fix that. Our response is about getting the feed. And if we've got to use other resources, Tracy, we'll use them. But we've got to be careful that in helping we don't hurt.
Last week's news poll was predictably dire after the...
Yeah, that wasn't a shock. I don't think that was a shock. And it was the just desserts of what had happened, I think, for the government.
How long are you going to give yourself to get a turnaround in that?
I'm just not going to focus on that. I'm going to focus on rebuilding my party quickly. It's not going to take a long time. As you said, I've given them... I've given them... I mean, they know what's at stake. That poll is out there, and look, Bill Shorten thinks he's already won the next election. You know, he's already measuring up the curtains. He already thinks... I remember he said this to Malcolm Turnbull, just leave the keys to the lodge and, you know, in the door or something.
So what are you going to do about the leaking and the breathing?
It'll stop.
Are you bracing yourself for how your life is going to change?
Yes, definitely. Bracing myself. Extremely humbled by it, and it is daunting to say the least, but just take each day as it comes, and
that's what we're doing.
We'll just make it work.
You're clearly a very devoted mother and a devoted wife, and now you're a First Lady. How do you...
That's funny, Tracy.
You are?
I don't see myself as a First Lady, but...
She's always been my First Lady.
I don't know, I'm just a mum, and I'm just doing my mum thing and looking after the kids and making sure everything's as normal as possible. And sweet and wonderful, but very normal.
Yes.
My kids are not perfect. I am not perfect. So, yeah, we'll just be dealing with it and letting the girls keep a very normal life, as normal as we can possibly make it.
And will you still have your curry date once a week?
Oh, yeah.
I hope so.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
don't know, we haven't talked about that. Are you going to be home?
Yeah, look, the reason we did it is because I've always had pretty challenging jobs in my parliamentary career up until now, and we just wanted to have... I mean, families have rituals. It was actually a local rugby match. You're going to... Okay, you tell us.
So, no, we were having dinner with friends, and we were having dinner with friends.
Don't disagree with the Prime Minister, John.
I can. And I will.
Ed does.
I said, but mate, if he's cooked a meal or something, I might appreciate it, because he...
This was about four years ago, I think.
He'd only cooked a boiled egg, and he cooks that very well. Yeah. But he overheard, and he goes, "It's a deal. I'll cook on Saturday night," and the rest is history. He took over the kitchen every Saturday night.
Tell me honestly, you can be really honest. Okay. Are you glad he's got this job?
I'm very proud of Scott, and it's fantastic that he could actually, be Prime Minister, but... yeah, sometimes I just wish he was a plumber or something.
Now, for the sake of everybody's plumbing...
even a builder, because I've got doors falling off.
Yeah. And they're home every night.
It'd be awesome. Well, yeah.
Stick to what you know.
Yeah. Thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Thanks. Not a day needed, but
yes.
Not a day will rest on this. We'll give it everything.
Yeah.
Still to come on A Current Affair, after another violent gang brawl, Victoria Police are feeling the heat over their no arrest policy.
My flatmates and I, we sort of thought it had been a shooting, that